In October 2012, the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean bore witness to the formation of a storm that would forever alter the course of history. At its peak, it would span over 1,000 miles in diameter, becoming one of the largest Atlantic hurricanes on record. Its destructive power left entire regions submerged, millions without power, and communities struggling to recover for years. This storm was Hurricane Sandy, often referred to as Superstorm Sandy, a hurricane that redefined the scale of devastation in the modern era. Hurricane Sandy claimed at least 147 people and caused an estimated $70 billion in damages, making it one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history. Hurricane Sandy, a storm of unprecedented scale and impact, began its journey as Tropical Depression 18 in the southwestern Caribbean Sea on October 22, 2012. The depression quickly organized into a tropical storm later that day, earning the name Sandy as it moved northward. Forecasters closely monitored its progress, noting the potential for significant impacts across the Caribbean and the eastern United States. By October 23rd, Sandy was intensifying steadily, with tropical storm-force winds and heavy rains spreading toward Jamaica. Residents in vulnerable areas braced for the storm, which posed a serious threat to lives and property. On October 24th, Sandy reached hurricane strength, becoming a Category 1 hurricane just before making landfall in Jamaica. The island experienced widespread damage, with strong winds uprooting trees, power outages affecting large swaths of the population, and heavy rains causing flash flooding in low-lying areas. Later that day, Sandy intensified further into a Category 2 hurricane as it moved northward toward Cuba. That evening, Sandy made landfall near Santiago de Cuba, bringing winds of 110 meters per hour and torrential rains. The storm caused significant destruction to homes, infrastructure, and agriculture, leaving many communities reeling from its impact. As Sandy moved away from Cuba on October 25th, it weakened slightly to a Category 1 hurricane, but remained a formidable force as it headed toward the Bahamas. The sprawling storm caused extensive flooding and storm surges across the islands, disrupting daily life and causing structural damage in coastal areas. Meanwhile, the southeastern United States began to feel the effects of Sandy's outer bands, with increased surf and coastal erosion reported along Florida's eastern coastline. Emergency preparations ramped up across multiple states as the storm's projected path became clearer. On October 26th, Sandy's interaction with an approaching cold front began to expand its wind field significantly. Although it temporarily weakened to a tropical storm, Sandy quickly regained hurricane status, demonstrating its resilience and potential for devastation. The cold front's influence created a hybrid weather system that intensified Sandy's impacts and steered it toward the northeastern United States. By this time, the storm's immense size was evident, with tropical storm-force winds extending hundreds of miles from its center. October 27th marked a pivotal day in Sandy's evolution as it continued to track parallel to the southeastern U.S. coastline. The storm's wind field expanded further, and its interaction with the cold front created a scenario unlike any seen in recent history. Meteorologists warned of a superstorm as Sandy's trajectory curved westward toward the East Coast. States from North Carolina to New England declared states of emergency, and evacuation orders were issued in vulnerable coastal areas. The National Hurricane Center emphasized the storm's unique characteristics, cautioning that its combination of hurricane and winter storm elements could lead to catastrophic impacts. On October 28th, Sandy approached the mid-Atlantic region, with its massive size bringing heavy rain, strong winds, and dangerous storm surges to areas well in advance of its center. The storm's westward turn became apparent, setting the stage for a direct impact on the densely populated northeastern United States. Residents and officials in major cities like New York and Philadelphia scrambled to finalize preparations, including closing mass transit systems, securing properties, and stocking up on emergency supplies. By this time, Sandy was transitioning into a post-tropical cyclone, but its strength and destructive potential remained undiminished. The storm made landfall near Brigantine, New Jersey on October 29th, delivering a devastating blow to the region. With sustained winds of 80 meters per hour and an enormous wind field, Sandy caused unprecedented damage. In New York City, storm surges inundated Lower Manhattan, flooding subway tunnels, streets, and buildings. The city's iconic landmarks, including the Statue of Liberty and the Brooklyn Bridge, stood as silent witnesses to the chaos. In New Jersey, coastal towns were battered by waves and high winds, leaving neighborhoods unrecognizable. Across the region, over 8 million people lost power, and emergency responders worked tirelessly to rescue those trapped by rising waters. By October 30th, Sandy's remnants moved inland over Pennsylvania, weakening but still causing significant impacts. Heavy rain and snowfall persisted in the Appalachian region, leading to hazardous conditions and compounding the challenges faced by affected communities. In the storm's wake, residents began to assess the extent of the damage, with many describing scenes of devastation unlike anything they had experienced before. The recovery process would prove to be long and arduous, with displaced families seeking shelter and communities rallying to support one another in the face of overwhelming loss. On October 31st, Sandy's remnants continued to affect parts of the northeastern United States, with scattered rain and snow showers contributing to ongoing disruptions. Efforts to restore power and clear debris intensified as millions remained without electricity and basic services. Meanwhile, government agencies and humanitarian organizations ramped up relief efforts, providing food, water, and temporary housing to those in need. The scale of the damage became clearer with each passing day, prompting discussions about long-term recovery and infrastructure resilience. By November 1st, Sandy's impact extended into Canada, particularly in Ontario and Quebec, where high winds and heavy rains caused power outages and transportation disruptions. In the United States, search and rescue operations continued in the hardest-hit areas, while utility crews worked around the clock to restore electricity. Communities came together to support those affected, demonstrating remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. The storm's death toll climbed as more victims were discovered, underscoring the tragedy's human cost. On November 2nd, the recovery process was in full swing, with federal, state, and local officials coordinating efforts to address the widespread devastation. In New York and New Jersey, some progress was made in restoring public transportation and reopening roads, but many neighborhoods remained uninhabitable. The economic impact of the storm began to emerge, with businesses facing significant losses and insurance claims reaching record levels. Despite the challenges, stories of hope and perseverance surfaced as communities worked together to rebuild and recover. Hurricane Sandy left a profound mark on the lives of millions, with survivors recounting harrowing tales of survival amidst the storm's fury. In Staten Island, New York, one resident described the rapid rise of floodwaters, saying, "The water came so fast, we barely had time to grab anything before it was up to our knees." Entire neighborhoods were submerged, forcing families to seek refuge on rooftops or in upper floors, waiting for rescue teams to arrive. The sheer power of the storm surge swept away vehicles, tore apart homes, and destroyed livelihoods in an instant. In New Jersey, a coastal resident reflected on the devastation, stating, "I've lived here my entire life, and I've never seen anything like this." The iconic boardwalks of towns like Seaside Heights were obliterated, leaving behind mangled wood and debris where bustling tourist attractions once stood. Losses in New Jersey alone amounted to over $30 billion, a testament to the scale of destruction wrought by the storm. Entire communities faced weeks, and in some cases months, without electricity, heat, or access to clean water, further complicating recovery efforts. For some, the emotional toll outweighed the physical loss. A family in Long Beach, New York, recounted how their home was completely flooded, destroying decades of memories. "We lost everything, but we're grateful to be alive. Things can be replaced, lives cannot," said the mother of three, holding back tears. Stories like these were echoed across the affected regions as people grappled with the reality of rebuilding their lives from scratch. The storm surge that inundated New York City caused unprecedented damage, with Lower Manhattan experiencing catastrophic flooding. Subway tunnels filled with seawater and power outages plunged much of the city into darkness. A Brooklyn resident described the chaos. "It was like the ocean came into our living room." For many businesses, the loss was devastating. Stores and restaurants faced months of closures, and some never reopened. The economic impact on New York City alone was estimated at $19 billion, with the effects rippling through the region for years. Despite the destruction, acts of bravery and resilience emerged. Emergency responders worked tirelessly to rescue those trapped by floodwaters, often risking their own lives. Neighbors banded together to share resources, clear debris, and support one another. Reflecting on this spirit of solidarity, one survivor remarked, "In the worst moments, we saw the best in people. It's something I'll never forget." Hurricane Sandy's impact will always be remembered for its strength and the way people came together to recover. The storm caused a lot of damage, but it also showed how communities can support each other in tough times. While the damage is still visible, the spirit of rebuilding and moving forward continues to inspire hope for the future.